Well, good morning, everyone. It is right at 11 o'clock, so I am going to go ahead and get started. We are recording, just so you know, and I want to thank everybody for joining us this morning on this snowy, cold day. Bobby, Joe, Maria, and Natalie, I think you all are troopers because you have been with us through almost every session, so we appreciate that. It's nice to have some live attendees on, and we're not just talking to each other on the team. So we certainly appreciate you being here. Thank you so much. Well, I am going to start my screen share. So give me just a second. And if anyone can just kind of nod, if you can see the welcome slide. Okay, great. All right, well, we'll go ahead and get started. I want to welcome you all to EdPuzzle. That is the session for the next hour. And my name is Wendy Hanaski. I'm an instructional technology coach at the East Central Ohio ESC. And this whole entire program is through a remote ed grant. There is a team of instructional coaches that are working to help the teachers in the surrounding counties. Again, just as a help, being a mentor, working with them on some topics maybe that they want to brush up skills on. And as I mentioned, today is the EdPuzzle. So a little bit of background about myself. I started out as a classroom teacher in Heath, Ohio, which is between Zanesville and Columbus. I taught high school, grades 7 through 12, bachelor's of secondary education in business. And I was given the old business lab when I started at Heath High School. It was a huge room. Think of like a double regular size classroom. And they were a unique school in that in the mid-90s, they passed a technology grant in their community, which was kind of unheard of at that time. And so they received all these brand new computers. And they said, well, we're going to have to put them in your room because you have the biggest room. And I said, well, I know accounting and different business classes. I don't know if I know computers. And they said, well, you're going to have to learn. So for those of you who may feel like you're not that great at technology, I can understand, believe it or not, because at one time I never touched a computer, but by trial and error and practice and all the YouTube videos that are available these days, any one of us can become an expert. So I do have a master's in education administration, and I actually went on to get my doctorate in technology education. So that's just a little bit about me. As we move through the day, I'd like to start with some housekeeping items. First of all, if you don't mind typing your name, your position, and your school in the chat, just so we kind of know who's here with us. There is a QR code here that you can use. We're asking you to complete a survey for our record keeping. I believe the link is also in the chat. If you wouldn't mind, go ahead and doing that. And once we get these items out of the way, we're going to do an introduction to EdPuzzle so that you can see what this technology is, how it can help you in your classroom, and then the fun stuff, because we're going to be able to build one that we can take and use on our own. I think you'll be very pleasantly surprised how easy it is to use the EdPuzzle technology. Of course, we'll wrap up with questions, and I've also listed the Google Classroom code for those of you who want to access the classroom itself. Okay, so I see we have Northwestern local, Coal Valley, Illinois. Wow, okay. And Toledo, that's great. That's wonderful. Okay, thank you. All right, so when you look at this next slide, and I'm going to ask you to put on your go back in time hat right now and think about when you were in school and a teacher wheeled this cart into the room. Think for a second, what was your immediate thought? Because if it was like me, I was like, yes, video, you know, time to relax, maybe even catch a couple Z's if the teacher's not paying attention. I know in my class, we just always enjoyed movie time. The problem with that was that the teacher really didn't know if we were paying attention or even grasped the material. Sure, you could have classroom discussions and ask some questions as you moved along, but really it was hard to know if the students was grasping that information or not. So EdPuzzle is a way that you can assess the students as the video is actually working in real time. So what is EdPuzzle exactly? Well, it's a free assessment-centered tool that allows teachers and students to create interactive online videos. So what do I mean by interactive? Because a video, you're just watching the video. How can that be interactive? Well, teachers can add questions at certain points within the video. It could be open-ended questions, multiple choice, true and false. Teachers can add notes. At any part of the video, the students get stopped and these questions are presented to them. And they have to answer them in order to move forward in watching the video. There's a lot of flexibility in the EdPuzzle technology because teachers can upload their own videos, or they can go to YouTube and get a video already created. There's a large library of EdPuzzle videos in the repository that other EdPuzzle users have uploaded to share. So there's a lot of flexibility in what you can do and how you can use your video. What's nice about the EdPuzzle, going back to that movie cart we were just talking about, is that teachers really can now track how many students watched the video and how many times did they watch it, what questions did they get correct, what questions did they get wrong, and they can really track the progress. So the first thing that we are going to do to create an EdPuzzle account is to actually go to EdPuzzle.com and do so. If you wouldn't mind, in the chat, you could just put yes or no. How many of you already have an EdPuzzle account? And if you don't, that's fine. I'm just gauging the group. Okay, yes, yes, and no. Okay. So let me switch over, and I'm going to go to edpuzzle.com and show you what this looks like. Okay, and if the group wouldn't mind, again, just giving me yes or no that you can see the EdPuzzle screen. Okay, yes, yes, yes. Okay, so right now I'm logged in, and if those of you who have an account want to go ahead and log in. And if you don't, you can create a new account and you can use your Google credentials to do so. The first thing that we're going to do is look at this bar that's over on the left-hand side where it reads Discover. And when you're creating an EdPuzzle, you have to decide, do you want to use your own puzzle, or do you want to look for a video that's already created? And there's a couple different sources that you can use to do so. So this button that's over on the right-hand side says Add Content. If you click on Add Content, you're going to be able to discover, which is this repository that we're going to talk about in just a second. There's an option here to upload a video where you can actually upload a video that you created. You could record a video. So if you want to start from scratch, it's going to be your own video, but you're actually creating it from scratch. You can do so here. So we're going to go back to Discover. And the first thing that we're going to look at is these three main categories. You have community, you have My School, and you have YouTube. So in the community, what you're going to see here is all the other EdPuzzle users that have shared EdPuzzles that they've created. So it allows you to kind of not reinvent the wheel. You can use something that's already created. And as you can imagine, there are a lot of videos in this repository. So the search keys are very helpful when looking for a video that's going to match your content requirements. As you can see here, there are fields you can use to narrow these searches. So you have the different subjects or the disciplines. You have grade levels that you can search by, countries, and even a source here where you have EdPuzzle hosted, which is kind of what we're looking at right now, and then the YouTube channel. Also, you'll see a search bar at the top. So if you have a specific topic, maybe you're looking for a math lesson on fractions, you can type in fractions, and then again, using these subject areas and grade levels to narrow that search specifically on fractions. So if I want 5th grade fractions, here we go. Here's a list of already created EdPuzzles. Moving on to the next main category, as mentioned, we started with community, but now we're going to look at my school. So my school is everyone within your school, and you can invite other teachers in your buildings or in your school to share. You can share your videos, they can share theirs, and all of those videos will be housed in the My School. So it's a way to kind of separate from the main community of all EdPuzzle users to just have your friends and family and everyone that's related in your school. And then finally, YouTube. And this is probably the most popular just because of the amount of videos that is in YouTube as a source. You can see that once I clicked on the main category of YouTube, it breaks it down into Khan Academy, National Geographic, and you can again use these different areas to narrow your search. So the key is once you are looking for a video and you find something that you're interested in, we're then going to work with that video. I am going to work with a video on memory. And so what I'm going to do next is move back over to the left side under the Discover, because remember, we've been in Community, My School, and YouTube, all under Discover. And I'm going to move down to the next category of My Content. So once you pick your video, you can move it over into this folder called My Content. So it's kind of like your videos, the ones that you have chosen, the ones that you're editing, and the ones that you are going to use to assign to your students. And the video that I would like you all to look at, and it's about 3.5 minutes, but I want to take the time to watch this video. It's the one that we're going to use for our demo. It is interesting. It's about your memory and how learners learn. So if you can indulge me, I'm going to pick up this video here, and I'm going to start to play this. If for any reason any of you cannot see this, if you want to just jot that down in the chat and we'll try to get that fixed. But let me go ahead and start this.
How does human memory work? By Academy of Learning Career College. This model provides a helpful framework for thinking about how memory works. Memory can be thought of as having 3 critical components. Sensory memory. Sensory memory takes information from the environment through the human senses: sight, hearing, touch, taste, and smell. Sensory memory can take a lot of information, but information is stored for only a very short time, with visual information being stored for less than half a second and auditory information being stored for only 3 to 4 seconds. Working memory. Working memory is what you are conscious of or what you are thinking about at any given moment. This is where the memory work happens. People can only handle a small amount of information in their working memory at one time. We cannot think about a million things at once. In fact, we can only hold about 4 things in our working memory at a time. We also cannot hold that information for very long. Working memory duration is about 5 to 20 seconds unless we actively try to remember information by repeating it. Long-term memory. Long-term memory is where we hold all our memories. One goal of learning is to get information into long-term memory so we can use it later when we need it. We have a lot of room to store memories, but the memories we store are not perfect representations of the outside world. Long-term memory is relatively permanent. However, if we want to maintain easy access to a memory, we need to retrieve that information regularly. What this means is that learning depends on three critical processes: attention, encoding, and retrieval. Attention. To get new information into long-term memory, it must go through the working memory, and to get into working memory, we must pay attention to it. This means that attention and focus are the starting point for learning. If learners are not paying attention to course materials, they will not be able to process the information or remember it later. Distractions, text messages, notifications, daydreaming, are not helpful for learning. Encoding. Once we are conscious of information in our working memories, we want to encode the information into long-term memory. Encoding is made easier when learners connect new information to what they already know. Information and processes are repeated. Information is assembled, structured, and organized. It can help to think of your memory a little bit like a filing cabinet. It is easier to find things when they are filed away in an organized fashion. Information is translated from however it is originally seen and heard into something created by the learner. Retrieval. Taking information out of long-term memory and into our conscious working memory so we can change our behavior. Retrieval gets easier when you practice. The more you retrieve something from long-term memory, the easier it becomes. People who have been tested on material are more likely to remember it later and apply it than people who only studied the material. How does human memory work?
Okay, so that gives us a video that we can now work with and add some questions to. And as you saw, there is a lot of information in there that can be tested as the students move through that video. So we're going to work with this video, and I want to backtrack 1 second because I want this to be meaningful for you. So I'm going to work specifically with the memory video, but if you want to go back to Discover and click in a topic that you want to work with, then I think you can follow along just fine as I go through. So I know I had picked fractions as a search. What you want to do is once you find your video, in the bottom right-hand corner, there is going to be a check mark, and it's kind of like a small square. You have to look, but when you click there, down at the bottom of your screen, you will have an option to copy this. So you're not taking the actual source video, you're making a copy of that. And when you click on copy, it will automatically take it over to the My Content page, which if you click My Content, you will now see that that video is there, the copy of it. So you can then click on that video, you can watch it, you can look and see the specific questions that that author had already put in. And up at the top here, you can also edit. So I'm going to give you just about 1 minute to search for a video that you want to work with. And I want you to click that square in the bottom right-hand corner and copy it so that it goes into your My Content, and we'll work from there. So about 60 seconds, go ahead and try to find a video that you can use as your example. Okay, so I am going to pull up the memory video that we had just watched, but I want to show you my final product. And I know we're jumping at the end and moving backwards, but I think it's easier to understand how this will work when you see ones that already have questions embedded. So this is the same video, but if you take a look down here at the time bar, you'll see little teardrops. Those teardrops represent places where questions have been inserted. So if I go to the very first teardrop, you're going to see that the first multiple choice question has come up. What are the 3 critical components of memory? You will find that first question at the 21-second timestamp on this video. If I let my mouse rest right here and simply click, it'll take me to that first multiple choice question. Also on the right-hand side, you'll see a running list of the timestamps with the other questions here. So let me go ahead and play this. Like I said, I'll just stop it at the 21-second mark, just so that you can see a student starting at the beginning, playing the video, and how it will stop the student, make them answer the question before they move on. So I'm going to click play.
How does human memory work? By Academy of Learning Career College. This model provides a helpful framework for thinking about how memory works. Memory can be thought of as having 3 critical components.
So at the 21-second mark, the video stops, the question comes up. The student gets presented the question, what are the 3 critical components of memory? So they're going to look through the 3 choices, they're going to make their selection, and they could submit it. Once they submit their answer, the system will automatically grade it and tell the student if they did it correct or incorrect. Once they've read that first question, got their answer, they can click continue, and
Sensory
the video
memory.
will move on.
Sensory memory takes information from the environment through the human senses.
I'll go ahead and jump to the second question, which is asking if sensory memory takes information from the environment and processes it through a person's intellect, a person's senses, a person's emotions. So student again makes their choice and they could submit it. However, you may also notice that there is a rewatch option here. So maybe the student didn't get the full content as they would like. They could simply rewatch that section of the video again.
Sensory memory can take a lot of information
before that question is presented. So they do have options. Embedding these questions into the video is really very, very simple. All you're going to do, and this is when you can pull out your video once again, is go ahead and click on your video in the My Content folder and take a look up at the right side where you see a sign, which we will do at the end once your questions are embedded, edit, share preview, and this is either if you want to keep it public or private, but we're going to go to edit. When you click edit, you then have a couple choices of things that you can do. Take a look up at the top. You have a cut, you have a voiceover, and you have questions. Now, a cut is simply if you want to take the beginning part of the video or the end part of the video out. You'll see that our video, the one that I've been using, had a little introduction from the actual creator that you could simply take out. And so the student will begin the video right when the content begins. All you would do is put your cursor right at that second mark. It took 6 seconds for that introduction. So I moved my cursor to
How
the
does
6
human
seconds,
memory?
and I can click the cut button and that will take it out. The questions is probably the most popular because again, you have the multiple choice, you have the open-ended. Teachers can add a specific note. So this would be just some sort of facts or information that you want to give to the student and tell them about the video by just simply typing in a note. So once you are in your video, you've clicked the edit, and now we're the questions. You can let the video run as long as you want. And when you get to the point where you want the question,
Rework.
you'll hit the play button, which will pause it, and you can choose what type of question you would want in. So I'm going to let this go to the 21-second mark, which is where my first question was on the finished product. And I'll type in from scratch so you see how this works. So I'm going to hit play.
Academy of Learning Career College. This model provides a helpful framework for thinking about how memory works. Memory can be thought of as having three critical components. Sensory memory.
Okay, so since we took out that very beginning that from the original author, it's a little bit less time, not 21 seconds. I think it was at 16. There we go, 15. So right now is where I want to add a question. You can see I'm at the 15-second mark. I want this to be multiple choice, so I click here. And now I can type in the question. So what is the question that you would like the students to answer? What are the three critical components of memory? Now, this is up to you, but I like to put the correct answer in first. The system is going to give you two choices of boxes here, but you can add a third or a fourth or however many you want. But decide if your correct answer is going to be in the first box, the second box, the third box, and type that answer in first. That way you know that the correct answer is there. By default, all three boxes are going to have the X, meaning that this is a wrong answer. You have to click the check mark next to the box that has the correct answer. And that's how the system will look when the student makes their choice, whether they say that the student received 100% on that question or whether they missed it. So it's definitely a key component. You want to click the check mark by the correct answer. Now, for your other choices, you may have a question bank that you're using and you can just pull from those. You can edit your questions, but just change it a little bit so that you have wrong answers for the other ones. Okay, so I have three answers in here. And by the way, if this was going to be a true false question, you could have just said true false and stated your statement, made this first question true, made it false. You could use it that way too. There's also open-ended ones. But this one, we did the multiple choice. We put the question, we put the three choices for answers. Once that's the way you want it to be, just go ahead and click save. So now that you have a question embedded, you'll see that the little teardrop is here at 15 seconds, letting you know you did embed the question correctly. At this point, I can simply hit play, let it move on through the video, and decide where my next question is going to be. So I'll let this play a few more seconds.
Sensory memory. Sensory memory takes information from the environment through the human senses, sight, hearing, touch, taste, and smell.
Okay, so for time's sake, I will put the next question here at 24 seconds. And this is completely a personal preference. You may decide that's too quick for questions. You might want to make the student go a little longer and then try to recall what they had heard 10, 15 seconds ago. Completely up to you. But for example's sake, I'm just going to stop it here. I'm going to do another multiple choice question, but I'm going to make this a true false so that you can see how that looks. So the question, it's true, false. Sensory memory takes information from the environment and processes it through their senses. So that's either going to be true or it's going to be false. And since it's true, again, key component, you want to make sure you click the check mark, and then you want to come down and click save. Taking a look at the time bar, you see that there is another question embedded. So you can continue.
Sensory memory can take a lot of information.
You can let that play as long as you want. And again, you can do an open-ended question. A lot of teachers that I've seen in these EdPuzzle videos will put an open-ended question at the very end of the video itself and simply ask, name 3 things overall you learned from this video, or what was your thoughts about this video? Just something that allows them to summarize what they heard.
But information is stored for only.
And then finally, we have the note. And again, this is simply just you, and you can use audio or you could type it in, but it's simply you giving your final thoughts about something you want to put in to the video. You'll see the microphone here in case you wanted to record this. This is a test. I am now recording. You click to stop it. You can play it. Record this. This is a test. I am now recording. To record this, and you can save it, and that note would also be then embedded in that video.
Only a very short time.
So there's a lot of different flexibilities in what you want to add to the video, but what's nice to know is that you can stop the student at any time, assess what they have just heard, and ask them to show their understanding by answering these questions. Once you have your video completed, you've added everything that you want to add, you can come up to the upper right-hand corner. You're going to see the blue finish button. So if you click finish, it's going to take you back and show you all your little teardrops. And at this point, you can continue to edit. You can share a preview of this video. This will give you a link that you can send or put into your Google Classroom. You can decide if you want the video to be public or private. But the main button that a lot of teachers use is this assign button, because this is a way to assign the video you just created to your Google Classrooms. Once I click on the assign, I can add a new class so that I choose my Google Classroom. So I'm going to click add new class, and I can look in my Google Classroom. I have my one class that's already here, but you would simply see your classroom, click on it, and then choose to assign it. Once you've chosen your classroom, you can hit assign. Before you do so though, let me show you the right-hand side. The start date's today, because that's the day we actually created it and are assigning that to the class. The due date is up to you. If you want a due date, you can click on a specific date on the calendar, and you can save it. And then you have a couple editing options as the teacher. You can prevent skipping, so they can't skip a question as it comes to them. They have to do that in order. You can turn on the closed caption, and you can post it on to Google Classroom, which is what we would want to do here if we were assigning this. So once you have every setting the way you prefer it to be, you're going to click assign. And it is going to go into your Google Classroom. What's nice about being able to embed the EdPuzzle right into your Google Classroom is that there's also what they call a grade book, so that you can see all the students that are in that classroom, if they've watched it, what their grade is, when their last watch date stamp was, and if they've turned it in. So it's all listed here for you in an analytic type of view. The questions, if you want to drill down to see how many questions a student actually got correct or incorrect, I always think this is helpful to look at, because if every single student missed a question, then you might want to ask yourself, well, maybe this was a bad question, and edit that just a bit. But this is a nice screen for you to monitor the progress of how that student did. So I'm going to go back into our main page of EdPuzzle, back to the Discover. Just as a recap, remember, Discover is where you can find this huge repository of videos that are available for you to use. You can also make a copy and you can edit. The My Content is going to be where you house your videos that you're using. If your My Content page starts to get a little bit crowded, there's also folder options where you can create your different folders and move things just like in your Google Mail or Google Classroom, or you can create folders and organize it that way. As a reminder, the My School is any of your colleagues that you're working with in your organization who may be sharing their EdPuzzles, so that you can view their work and they can view your work. And finally, the My Classes. Now, right now, you'll see My Classes already here. I could have done this first. I could have clicked the plus button and added my Google Classroom before I created the EdPuzzle. And then when I chose to assign it, I could simply include what classroom I wanted that to be assigned to. So that is EdPuzzle in a nutshell. And I know I have been talking quite a bit. So at this time, I'd like to stop and ask if there's any questions, anything that you would like to see again. So moving back to the slideshow, you all will receive this slide deck that has some screenshots of how to create this EdPuzzle. You'll also be able to watch the recording again at any time if you want to work through it. But our hope as the team is that you will find worth in having the 6 of us that are on the coaching team work with you. And we do so through virtual meetings, 15 minutes, half an hour, whatever it is that you need. We can do the meetings one-on-one, we could do it as a group. But if you use the QR code or you visit the web link that I have listed here, we would be happy to meet with you. You can get access to our calendar and our schedule, and we are here to help you throughout the year. So it doesn't have to be EdPuzzle, it could be whatever it is that you're working on. But just please know that we're here to help you. And if no one has a question, and let you guys go and have an early lunch, we have another session at 12. And I believe one at 1 and one at 2. So again, thank you for spending your little bit of time with us, and hope to see you again in the next session.
Thanks, Wendy.
You're welcome.
I grabbed my lunch while you were doing that. I warmed up what I had from the other day.
Oh,